The world ended not with a bang, but as a silent cascade. Telephone towers darkening, headlights dimming, and the endless sigh of empty streets. California's coastline sagged into muted orange dusk. Overpasses caved inward. Food supply lines cracked. The serum meant to save took life instead. Jeremy and Kristen fanned east into the snow-capped Sierra Mountains. Highway 5 wound through black pine forests covered in ash and rust. They traded elevation for isolation, hoping zombies would thin at altitude. But they found carcasses, human and animal, climbing the slopes, pecked at by ravens. Sheltering at a shuttered ranger cabin, they learned from scavenged radio chatter of a western firewall, a planned perimeter around San Francisco hoping to contain outbreak. They decided to head west in secret, using mountain paths beyond the roadblocks. Each night they climbed slim passes. Each day they forded icy streams and observed zip lines tangled with corpses, evidence of failed evac. Shadows of walkers stretched long in snowdrift. Isolation cracked resolve. Jeremy soaked in the alpine greenery. Kristen avoided mirrors. She whispered fragments of memories. Her brother's childhood laugh, her mother's cooking. Jeremy slept fitfully, haunted by patients who rose like marionettes, jerking with wretched intent. He studied his duffel's pistol rounds, mentally counting the number he planned to fire and those he couldn't afford to waste. Winter nights stretched endlessly. Water froze in the kettle. The wind moaned like hungry spirits. They drank canned stew warmed on a camping stove. Each bite tasted of resignation. Jeremy sketched maps between sips. Kristen watched the peaks tremble. Kristen decrypted deeper Biocorp's archives. She discovered Vector Base was only one node in a chain, a network of labs, each hosting variants of cure or pathogen. The Sierra passed over the fault lines, each lab powered by hydrodams now offline. She deduced an activation code sequence buried in the data chip, only retrievable if she aligned memory recall with lab holograms. Jeremy volunteered to inject himself again using new serum vials. He was immune to rejection, and Kristen resisted. She drew his blood for a sample, then carried vials across snowfields in cold packs snatched from Vector anesthesia freezers. Snow melted and refroze into invisible rime across the lab beakers she carried. Descending from the mountains, they emerged into the charred remains of Redding suburb. Ash no longer felt artificial. It was literal. Trees and houses burned black. Smoke hung low like living wallpaper. The sky brimmed orange and gray. The infected swarmed along every walkway, men, women, and children with eyes gone, some dragging baggage, cars steaming, broken wheels hinged. They stumbled onto a militia base, hidden in a flipped morgue. The group was fractured, some survivors using stolen army uniforms, others pure scavengers. They offered secure passage east for a price. Vials of serum, medical equipment, and data chip knowledge. Mistrust simmered. One militia faction attempted to sabotage them, took 2 doses. Zombies, drawn by gunfire, flooded in. Amid chaos, Jeremy and Kristen escaped again. Serum doses stolen, grenades lit rows of ashes, survivors fled in fear. They climbed over scorched corpses, hearing the dead relapse into crawl. They continued east across Interstate 5. At road markers 46 and 73, military checkpoints remained. No guards or vehicles, only loose gates. Rusty trucks leaned precariously, signs painted with "No Entry" in fading red. They passed miles of overturned tankers held hostage by flames, black smoke rising. In their rearview mirror, the road stretched dark and silent. At night, echoes of distant horns rose, maybe ghost transmissions. Kristen listened with headphones, hearing static crosstalk and faint words. Deliver? They mapped sound intensities to roadside hills, found clusters of lifeless broadcast towers emitting distress waves, probably dying automated transmitters. They recorded them for playback at Vector Labs. When they finally returned to Vector Base, after bypassing collapsed tunnels and poisoned creeks, the facility had been attacked. Lab doors ripped open, vials shattered, computers burst into sparks. Armed zombies wandered fluorescence-lit hallways. The backup generator hummed under strain. Kristen raced to secure server banks. Jeremy cleared corridors with controlled fire, decompressing pressurized ducts to delay pursuers. In storage cold rooms, racks of frozen blood kits lay like skeletons. He grabbed 6 remaining vials. She accepted them with a trembling hand. They escaped through a maintenance tunnel leading to the river, bypassing code-locked doors. Behind them, alarms erupted. They fled toward the coast, following logistics maps of supply convoys. Coast Highway, Route 1, lay nearly intact but lined with burned ferries and sunken barges. At dusk, ocean waves crashed over end-of-world beaches, folding foam across sand battered by wrecked SUVs and corpses. They reached Port Monterey, the stated evacuation zone. The dock lay empty, ships idle, gangways raised. Air smelled of brine and rot. Kristen deciphered final broadcast logs showing departure earlier. Food drops had succeeded, but force evacuated inland quickly. Helicopters were grounded by coastal storms. As they turned away, headlights swept across the concrete pier, warmed engines idling. A forest of infected had gathered by the water's edge. Boats floated empty beyond buoys' rippling interest. With water levels rising, their only hope left was heading north along the Pacific coast inlet. They commandeered a rusted fishing vessel, a half-sunk tugboat, clipped with fuel. Jeremy steered. Kristen navigated from charts found in the captain's cabin. Midnight sea storms rocked them. Infected drifted in life jackets across floats. Tide rose. The boat's hull rattled like it resented human claim. They motored past Zachary Island. Night sky burned with aurora brown. Reflections of green gas lanterns from old oil rigs twinkled half-submerged. Engine failed. They drifted. Zero GPS. Kristen waded into fog, locating a battered buoy keyed to sea charts. They patched cables for solar panel salvage. In dead calm, they saw human silhouettes far off, dead men clinging to debris. No breath, no movement, only hands reaching upward. At dawn, they spotted rescue helicopters overhead, coordinated convoys along the desert island inlets. They waved from deck. Helicopters circled, tossing evacuation kits. Jeremy and Kristen boarded. As they rose, they looked down at the world. Fog piling into valleys, cities sunken into dust, fires still smoldering in ravines. They watched the shoreline shrink away, waves colliding with empty towns. Behind them, the zombie land lay drowned in ash. At a safe zone hospital, survivors replaced serum into vials for distribution. Jeremy and Kristen walked through processing tents, giving instructions to medics, journalists, and survivors. Kristen began uploading the full BioCorp's data to the global relief broadcast circuit. Jeremy tended sick, children with sores healed by the serum. He recognized desperation transformed into hope. On the bulletin screen, they saw flickering map data, infection dots shrinking as vaccine deliveries advanced. The land of zombies was being healed, inch by inch. Kristen watched the footage she recorded. Diesel engines idling, violent forest corridors, journeys across mountain passes. The image froze on the silhouette of the SUV barreling through Walker-jammed road, its taillights dim against ashen night. That frame became iconic, the emblem of survival. Jeremy placed a hand on Kristen's shoulder. They knew more awaited. Clean rooms to rebuild, labs to secure, mutated strains to reverse. The threat wasn't gone but mapped. The screen faded to black. Words scrolled, "Humanity endures."